For historical context and more information, see the description below.
Something is going to have to be done about the pace at which we're trying to live life. One of the movie magnates expressed a wish for a script that would begin with an earthquake and rise to a climax. And there's much about our day that would indicate that he could find his script in modern living. So much of life can be likened to an earthquake that's trying to rise to a climax, and the tempo of it doesn't seem to give us very much time to think about our plight. We have our social activities, but instead of there being relaxation in them, too frequently they simply add to the tension because we're trying to work them in the midst of a lot of things that we're worrying about, and the tension is just as heavy, or if not heavier, because we are thinking of that work that we should be doing. And all the time we continue to try to run up escalators. The writer of the book of Ecclesiastes said, "What has a man from all the toil and strain with which he toils beneath the sun? For all his days are full of pain and vexation." Well, what has a man from it all? Dr. Richard Coy of the University of Pittsburgh says it's beginning to show in the teeth. He says that more people are clenching their teeth. They're grinding them, they're gritting them, they're gnashing them. And the result is more headaches, neck aches, and shoulder pains. Dentists treat the condition by restructuring the teeth and jaw area so the patient's bite is more evenly distributed, spreading out the pressure. End of quote. But of course that does absolutely nothing about the cause. If we're going to do anything about that, we're going to have to think on the implications of the word of the writer, who said that he had been living his years like a man who was forever changing trains. He went on with the lament, "Suddenly I realized something terrible, that none of it has been retained, nothing gained. My lips have only touched the cup of life, never draining it. I have sunk my teeth into life, never savored it. While ascending, I was thinking how to descend. Opening a suitcase, I was already thinking of repacking." That's tragic, isn't it? I suppose a good many people hope that the situation is only temporary. If they work hard enough and if they walk fast enough, probably later on they'll find time to relax. Famous last words. It was expressed one night in a television program that had very little to commend it, excepting one comment. This man was very much a part of the busy business world. It's quite obvious it was getting the better of him. Quite obvious he was cracking under the strain of it. And his friend said to him, "Bill, you don't seem to realize that taking time to get some relaxed happiness out of life is not a luxury. It's an essential to health. As I see your trouble, you are living under the delusion that one can let the joy of living wait. Well, the fact is, there's so many things in the world that just won't wait. And the first thing we know, we're at the place suggested by the Wall Street Journal the other day when it said, somehow or other, as we get older, work seems a lot less fun and fun seems a lot more work. Of course, the man who wrote that must have been older than any of us. But now is the accepted time to do something about it or never. That's a morbid book, the book of Joel, isn't it? As a lesson was being read this morning, the first lesson, just thinking what a terrible picture that was. The desolation, terrible hardships that had come upon the people because of a plague of locusts. It's described in the words that the vine is dried up, and the fig tree is languished, and the pomegranate tree, the palm tree also, and the apple tree, even all the trees of the field are withered. Gird yourselves and lament, ye priests. Howl, ye ministers of the altar. Come lie all night in sackcloth, ye ministers of my God. And in the midst of all that, we find the words, joy is withered away from the sons of men. Joy is withered away from the sons of men. They're no longer getting any happiness out of living. Well, it will wither for a good many reasons. Sometimes because of disaster, such as descended on the people in that book of Joel. Sometimes sorrow, sometimes disappointment will do it. It will also come with disuse. It will also wither if we try to leave it on the sidelines and forget that there's something very essential here to bring into the daily round of things. It will wither just as the arm will wither if it is tied too long in a sling. The side effects, you see, are devastating. For one thing, a person doesn't laugh as much as he did. And we can't afford to go through life like that. Emerson once spoke of medicine as laughter as the medicine of God. Do you recall, under the cruel rule of Robespierre, the Convention of France was meeting? Every demand was being met. And then suddenly some person away off in a distant seat burst into laughter. And it was contagious, and the whole assembly began to laugh. And that was the beginning of the downfall of the tyrant. I recall hearing Joey Brown say one time, following a play in which he'd been acting, and it was just after war had been declared. And he came out for a curtain call. And he said the great tragedy of this past 10 years has been the fact that the German people have lost their ability to laugh. For if they had kept their sense of humor, they would have laughed Hitler off the scene long ago. Powerful business laugh. Someone has defined a rainbow as a storm cloud that is illumined by a burst of sunlight. That's pretty much what laughter is, isn't it? A burst of sunlight and life. Jesus believed in it so much that you have the feeling as you read through the New Testament that he is actually trying to avoid the solemn fasts. And you find him giving urges to his disciples not to be so dismal about things. Be of good cheer, I have overcome the world. Little children loved him. You ever see little children run to a grouch? If you want to know something that may be hidden in a person's personality, watch the way little children and dogs behave toward him. They have a kind of second sense. The little children love Jesus. And the fact is, when we don't take time to enjoy some of the things that give us a chuckle in life, the time comes where we're no longer able to chuckle, where the ability to chuckle withers. It does. And we let the joy of living wait. The tragedy is that we lose much of our capacity to enjoy. And when we come to the place where we would give anything just to be able to laugh like that person we just heard laugh, and we try to do it, something hollow comes out. I was amused the other day in reading from one of Bishop Kennedy's books, where a woman went to this minister and she said, I have tried the Episcopalians, and I've tried the Methodists, and I've tried the Lutherans, and I don't like any of them. Do you think I'd have any better luck if I tried to become a Presbyterian? And the minister's answer was, it doesn't matter too much what label you put on an empty bottle. Think about it. When we come to the place where we try to make the joy of living wait, where we hold off its happiness and say, there will come a time when I'll be able to do that, there's an emptiness that comes into our soul. It doesn't matter too much what we try to call it. It's just a ghastly business. You see, life takes on one hue at 20, and another at 30, and another at 40, and another at 50, and so on. And you can't wait. It's like the manna that we read about in the Old Testament. It must be either gathered that morning because the next day it'll be gone. And the joy that ought to be had in life when we're living whatever decade we're in, we would better make the most of it now, because tomorrow it won't be there. Do you understand that? Certainly the world doesn't. Dear old lady from the country was going on the railroad trip for the first time, and it was only 20 miles through beautiful country. But she was afraid she'd forgotten something, and she had to open her bag and see if it was there and dig down to the bottom of it. Then she had to get it set just right on the rack, and then she thought that the blind was down too far, and she wondered if the person across the car would raise his a little so she could see both sides. And by that time, the conductor came through and announced the station that she was supposed to get off at. And she said, "Oh my, if I'd only known that things were going to pass so quickly, I wouldn't have fussed so much." How many people, as they come to retirement, have that lament? If they had only known the years were going to pass so quickly, there was a great deal of fussing they could have done away with and enjoyed it as they went. So you just can't make the joy of living wait. We better begin to taste those things that brighten life this day. There's an old Negro spiritual that says, "Slow me down, Lord, I was going too fast. Can't see my brother when he's walking past. I miss a lot of good things day by day. Don't even know a blessing when it comes my way." Is there anyone here that doesn't understand that? What a tragedy. I call in Thornton Wilder's play Our Town, this woman comes back to earth for just one day. And suddenly she sees so many of those things that passed her by when she lived on earth for the first time. She never realized the beauty of them before. The ticking of a clock, something lovely about that, provided it's not too loud at 3 o'clock in the morning. The smell of coffee, the smell of bacon that's just a little bit burned. So many of these little common things that we rush by. So many things that had to wait. How often, for instance, do we remember to thank God for very commonplace things like friends? The privilege that you and I have day after day to talk with people that we love and that love us. And they even love us so much that they share a problem with us and ask us if we'll help them to bear the burden. You know, over in Africa, when they're carrying a burden, they have that 1/8 weight on the end of a stick, and then they equalize it on the other end of the stick, and they put it across the shoulders. Friendship is so much like that, isn't it? You get the two burdens, and somehow or other, we walk along more easily with them. Years ago, a mentally sick man attempted to assassinate President Roosevelt. They asked him if he belonged to a church. He said, "No, I don't. I don't belong to anything. And I suffer." You bet he suffered. He suffered from that loneliness of trying to go through life himself without belonging. George Eliot once asked, "What do we live for if not to make life a little less difficult for each other?" It's so essential. I try to remember to say to every young couple that comes in and wants to discuss marriage that from now on they ask Will this course bring more happiness to her? Will this course bring more happiness to him? No longer do they think in terms of, what will it do for me? To love and to be loved, to trust and to be trusted, to lift and to be lifted, to have true friends because we are true friends. These are the things that are the perennial refreshments of living. What about our libraries? Some of our television, social activities? Played havoc with it, hasn't it? And yet, how much we need to sit down in a quiet library and read again such words as the curfew tolls the knell of passing day, the lowing herd winds slowly o'er the lea, the plowman homeward plods his weary way, and leaves the world to darkness and to me. There's solace in the very sound. Or the encouragement from a poem like Paul Hamilton Hayes. Art thou in misery, brother? Then I pray be comforted. Thy grief shall pass away. Art thou in danger? Still let reason sway and cling to hope. This too shall pass away. Whate'er thou art, where'er thy footsteps stray, heed these wise words. This too shall pass away. When did you read the Bible last? Or has it become what Dr. Sockman once said was the trouble with so many people? They used it like a young lady a wedding cake, broke it up into small pieces and put it under her pillow and went to sleep on it. But someone has wisely pointed out, maybe that's not so bad. Maybe it'd be a great thing if we would learn to take such chunks as my peace I give unto you. Not as the world giveth, give I unto you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. Might be a good thing to put that under some pillows and go to sleep on it. So we don't have to let the joy of living wait. You recall that Joel talked about the hardship of the people and the joy that was withered away. Our Christian faith says it doesn't have to happen. That's why I read from that 15th chapter of John. It's a chapter that follows that beautiful one, which tells the disciples not to be troubled, but to believe in Christ. Let not your heart be troubled. Ye believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. Then comes this great 15th chapter. And the disciples were troubled. They were afraid that the very bottom was dropped out of the world, that their master was going to be taken away. Probably they too would be hunted down by the enemies of Christ, and who knows but what they too might be crucified. Jesus tried to comfort them. These things, he said, have I spoken unto you, that my joy might remain in you, and that your joy might be full. Imagine talking about joy in a time like that. You are saying, in effect, that one may be deeply concerned over many things, but in the depth of his heart there can be a current of joy. that just as the waves at the top of the sea may lash with fury, and beneath they can be serene and calm, so one may seem to be beaten about by tragedy, and yet deep down, because his soul is rooted in eternity, in the serenity that comes from a faith that said, God is our refuge and strength, the very present help in trouble, therefore will not we fear, because his soul is rooted in that, he can still have joy. Jesus is saying, in effect, through all my tribulations, there's been something left that has kept life worth living. Through all of the puzzling situations of life, it has always had for me rich meaning. Have you been able to go through tragedy like that? Holding on to the joy of life. William James once said that the happy edge of things depends on the capacity of the soul to be grasped. Now get that. He's not saying it's the capacity of the soul to grasp things, to lay hold on happiness here and lay hold on happiness there. That the secret is in the capacity of the soul to be grasped. For God to be able to lay hold on that soul, through Christ to take hold of it and to give to us the life that passeth understanding. That's what he's saying. These things have I spoken unto you, my joy might remain in you, and your joy might be full. Or probably expressed in that verse, when my last red sand by time are sieved, and fate has struck my sinews from her looms, I shall have earned 3 words for my remains. Beside was born and died. Between, he lived. He lived. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
This morning's worship service emanated from Shadyside Presbyterian Church in Pittsburgh. Ministers of the church are the Reverend Dr. Howard C. Scharfe, the Reverend Dr. James R. Spear, and the Reverend J. Wayne Hanratty. Organist and choir director Russell G. Wickman. Today's sermon by Dr. Scharfe was titled, When We Let the Joy of Living Wait. Your comments on these services are invited. Listen next Sunday at 11 o'clock for the regular worship service from Shadyside Presbyterian Church, Amberson Avenue and Westminster Place in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.